Have you ever looked at a murky pond or maybe a lake where the shoreline is just getting eaten away and thought, man, what would it take to fix this? Like, how do you actually bring a whole waterway back to life? Well, it turns out the answer is pretty amazing.
You do it by giving it a floating, beating heart. Yeah, you heard that right. You partner with nature. What you're looking at is a biohaven floating island. Now, this is a really cool form of what we call biomimicry, which basically means we're copying a natural process. It's designed to act just like a natural floating wetland. So it creates new homes for wildlife, both above and below the water. And get this, it cleans the water while it's at it. It's such an elegant solution. So let's really dive in and see how this all comes together.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to walk through the whole process. We'll start with what these islands are, a sort of life raft for your lake. Then we'll hit the 3 big steps: planting, securing, and the launch. After that, we'll talk about supercharging your island, and finally, we'll get to the best part, the living island payoff.
Okay, first up, a life raft for your lake. So what is this thing really? Let's dig into the surprisingly simple but totally brilliant science that makes it float and function.
So the heart of the island is this really unique matrix. And get this, it's made from 100% recycled plastic water bottles, all bound together with a durable coating. But the real genius here isn't just the material, it's the structure.
It packs 375 square feet of surface area into every single cubic foot.
Think of it like a huge apartment complex for beneficial microbes. They move in, create this sticky layer called a biofilm, and that becomes the real engine that purifies the water.
And the benefits? Oh man, they are huge. These things are like Swiss Army knives for waterways. They knock down waves to stop shoreline erosion. They create brand new habitats for fish, birds, you name it. They naturally filter out pollutants. They obviously make the whole place look way better, and you can even use them for fun stuff. I'm talking floating docks, or hey, how about a floating yoga platform? Pretty cool, right?
All right, so now for the fun part. How do you actually bring one of these islands to life? Well, it all starts with step 1, planting. This is where we take that bare matrix and kickstart its journey into a lush, thriving ecosystem.
And just look at this transformation. It's absolutely incredible. On the left, you've got the before, the team planting on the bare matrix. And on the right, wow, that's the after. And get this, that's after just one growing season. It becomes a totally natural living part of the landscape.
The process itself is actually pretty straightforward. First up is prep. You fill these things called wicking channels with something absorbent, like rock wool, and then you add a layer of topsoil. Easy enough. Then you plant. Native plants are always a great choice, but you can even use sod, like Kentucky bluegrass, for a kind of instant green look. Now this next part is super important. You have to cover the entire top surface. This protects the matrix underneath from UV damage. And finally, you just use some landscape pins to lock it all down.
Okay, moving on to step 2, securing your island. And I gotta say, this might be the most critical decision you'll make in the whole process. So listen up, because getting this right is what makes sure your beautiful new island stays exactly where you want it and does its job for years and years to come.
Basically, you've got 2 main choices here, tethering or anchoring. And which one you pick really depends on your specific spot. So think about it. Is it a calm pond with a pretty smooth bottom? Then tethering to the shore is probably your best bet. But is it a high-energy place with lots of waves and currents, or does it have a thick layer of sludge on the bottom? In that case, you're going to want to go with anchoring.
So if you go the tethering route, here's the key. You attach the tether lines to the island before you do any planting. It's way easier that way. Then you just connect those lines to something solid on the shore. Something like a duckbill anchor works great. And you've got options for how you tie it off. A 3-point tie-off keeps it locked in one spot. But a 2-point tie-off, that lets the island gently move and drift with the breeze, creating this really beautiful, ever-changing water skate.
Now, for anchoring, the most common way to do it is with concrete blocks. But here's the catch. They actually need that layer of sludge or sediment on the bottom. That's what creates the suction that really holds them tight. Now, if you're in a really high-energy spot, think big waves or strong currents, you might need to bring in the heavy hitters, spiral helix anchors. They're pretty much what they sound like, giant corkscrews that get drilled deep into the lake bed. They've got incredible holding power, but yeah, you'll probably need some special equipment to get them in.
And this is a really important piece of advice. Every single location is different. There are so many little details. The source material puts it perfectly. It's always best to work with an experienced launch team. They call them island masters, which is awesome, to make sure you get the best possible results. They've seen it all.
All right,
You've got your island all planted, you figured out your securing strategy, now it's time for the moment we've all been waiting for. The launch. Of course, a good launch really starts on the shore. It's all about preparation. You can see the teams here getting the islands completely ready to go beforehand. This makes the whole process of actually getting them into the water go super smoothly.
So when launch day finally arrives, it's like a three-step dance. First, transport. You gently slide the island into the water and tow it out to its new home. Second, deploy. This is where you drop your anchors or the team on shore secures those final tethers. And third, establish. This is crucial. For the first 3 weeks or so, you need to water the plants from the top. You're just giving them a little help until their roots can grow down and find the water on their own.
Okay, but what if you want to, well, level up? What if you want to take your island's cleaning power and crank it to 11? See, a biohaven isn't just a passive floating garden. It's actually a platform for some seriously cool, active technology.
These advanced systems are called RAMs, and they use something called airlift technology, which basically means they use bubbles to create a current that actively pulls water up through the island's massive root system. The one you choose really depends on your goal. The RAM S is perfect for shallow water, mixing and oxygenating everything. The RAM D is for deeper spots, to get oxygen down to the bottom. And there are even specialized ones to eat away sludge or capture heavy metals. Pretty cool, huh?
And this is what it looks like in action. What you're seeing here is a stream bed feature. It's actively pulling water up and circulating it through all those plant roots. It essentially turns the whole island into a super efficient water-cleaning bioreactor. It's pretty incredible.
So, you've done all the work. You've planted, you've secured, you've launched. What's the payoff? Well, let's talk about the stunning results you get from a thriving, living island.
Okay, remember how we talked about erosion? Check this out. A strategically placed island can take a 1-foot wave and knock its energy down by 80%. 80. That is a massive amount of protection for a shoreline.
But honestly, the real magic isn't just what you see on top. It's what's happening underneath. As the plant roots grow down into the water, they create this dense, complex, almost magical underwater forest. This becomes an absolutely vital sanctuary for fish and all sorts of aquatic critters. It's the perfect safe haven for them to live and grow.
And in the end, this is what it's all about. This is the goal. You're left with a waterway that's healthy, that's balanced, and that's just stunningly beautiful. And look, the islands don't look like some man-made thing dropped in the water. They become a completely seamless, living, breathing part of the very environment they were built to heal.
So, from murky to magnificent, this technology is just an incredible example of how we can work with nature, not against it, to bring our waterways back to life. And it really just leaves you with one final question to ponder. What could a living island do for your water?